2 days before my 64th birthday, on August 4th, I traveled across the country to attend the memorial service for my dear brother, George Martin, in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. George was 77. The average life expectancy of Black women in the US is 78. The years in the early 2000s when George and I, along with Judith LeBlanc, shared United for Peace and Justice, hold some of my fondest memories of a lifetime of work for lasting peace. And in many, many ways, George is the inspiration for this message and for my requests for support. I remember a time when the norm was people retired after 40 years of working in the same field. That's especially true of the places in the more rural parts of North Carolina where I grew up. Jobs were in manufacturing, textiles, or the automotive industry, and most people retired after 34 plus years on the line. Those days are long gone. In the last few decades, you rarely hear about people being able to do what is their life's work, much less retiring. Many people work well into their 60s or 70s. I have the honor of both, doing the work that is exactly the kind of work I've wanted to do going way back. And I've been doing this work for 36 years now. I've been intentional about the kind of work I've wanted to do since middle school. I've always wanted to help make fundamental and lasting change. After college, as I began to think about what that work looked like in the world, peace came as the answer. At that time, peace to me meant all the change I wanted to see. It meant ending racism, ending sexism, poverty, and homophobia. It meant making sure the planet was safe and the people on it lived with freedom and justice. So, my first real job was at SANE, which then became SANE Freeze and is now Peace Action. In 1990, when Harvey Gantt was running against Jesse Helms for US Senate in North Carolina, I felt it was my responsibility to be in North Carolina, helping to register people to vote and get them to the polls. We were also one of the first states where voter fraud and intimidation happened. I continued working in North Carolina and in the South, doing community organizing and training. In 1995, I began doing training nationally and even internationally, traveling to Hungary. And in 2005, I traveled to Japan to speak at the conference to end A&H bombs. This was during the time I was co-chair of United for Peace and Justice. In 2010, I helped in founding Move to Amend. In the last few years, I've been aware that this is my time to pass on lessons learned to younger and emerging leaders, a role I have had for over a decade advising the younger leadership and Move to Amend's national team, as well as my work mentoring and training strong group of young emergent activists in the Seeding Peacekeepers Project. Those years have included many moments of inspiration and enlightenment, and many, many experiences of disappointment, rage, and despair. For some time now, it's felt like things are very, very much out of balance. I hope to take steps to help with that balance, at least for myself, and most certainly with your help. Sweet Honey in the Rock has been a consistent source of inspiration for decades. I imagine you know Ella's song. It begins with, "We who believe in freedom cannot rest. We who believe in freedom cannot rest until it comes." You know that song, yeah? I'd sing it, but I can't really sing. Now, I deeply, deeply believe in freedom, and I must rest. And that's what this request is about, helping me rest. I'm asking for your help in freeing me so that I may take a sabbatical. I see my sabbatical as time away from traditional work, with time focused on what is restorative, what feeds my soul, heals my body, and mitigates the conditions that may make things feel more destructive and less mutable than they must be. A sabbatical for George Friday. I don't know many people who've actually experienced a sabbatical, a couple in academia, one or two in my field of peace and justice, who after 20 or 30 years have taken 3 or 6 months, even a year. I'm thinking along the lines of 3 months. Oh, these will be 3 active months. I would want to make a point to see those I've worked with over the past decades, but haven't seen in years. I would stay in places where I'd have easy access to swimming and physical therapy. And I would revisit or visit places that feel sacred to me and just be for as long as possible. So that means traveling to places like Chicago and Cleveland and Richmond and South Florida, Eastern Alabama, Northern and Southern California. It's a lot of travel. When I conduct community building training, or what others describe as anti-oppression or anti-racism training, one of the fundamental elements of that is consciousness, developing and maintaining consciousness and conscious steps in the chaos of change, trusting that conscious change will lead to your vision of the world you want and the work that takes you there. It's time I followed that wisdom. I want to be conscious about the next steps I take on the planet over the upcoming moments, years, or decades. And I believe a sabbatical now will help me do exactly that. Thank you for any support and all support you can provide.